I cannot believe I am making another one of these videos. Another one. I can't believe I gotta talk about this. And it's like, it's something that's just been so annoying for the year, where it's like, I'm not even gonna say criticism, every take that they don't agree with is considered to be some form of like shot at people purely based on like, I don't even know. It's like, you can't even give basketball takes. If they don't like you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it's like, obviously it's back against this, talking about this crap. The A'ja Wilson can beat NBA players stuff. And it's not stopping. Like, obviously this is from a few days ago. You put prime A'ja Wilson's 4-year-old Chris Paul and you'd be crying elder abuse. Man, I've seen Chris Paul cook all defensive NBA players. He would score every single time and get a stop every single time in A'ja Wilson. It's just the reality of the situation. And it's a dumb argument to have. But I'm looking at all these posts. And by the way, the Charleston White stuff is ridiculous. Like, that's obviously bad. He's someone that I think there is major criticism of Jeff Teague. Or that's if Jeff Teague runs the podcast. If he doesn't run the podcast, then I don't think Reese say anything about Jeff Teague. Because Jeff Teague didn't say anything. He didn't say anything. He just kind of just sat there with his hands in his head. But the reality of the situation is the Charleston White clip should have been edited out of that. Edited out of the podcast. It was awful. And in fairness, like, Charleston White's Charleston White. And also, if Jeff Teague was responsible for bringing on Charleston White, then yeah, you criticize Jeff Teague. Just like you criticize Natalie Esquire for platforming the Caitlin Clark school SH00TER person. Just like you criticize your man Williamson for all the stuff that he says and people that are the company's platforming these type of people. You got to platform Jeff Teague for that. But the problem is like, it's not rightful. And it's not even not rightful criticism, because it is rightful criticism. That is completely right. And it's like, I think if you're going to be criticizing Natalie Esquire for platforming unhinged people, you got to criticize Jeff Teague for doing the same thing. Because we've always said this, the biggest issue with some of the stuff that Natalie Esquire is doing is not the fact that she's saying it, it's the fact that she is directly WNBA media. And that's where the issues are. And someone like Jeff Teague, who, while he's not directly WNBA media, he is a former NBA player. He is somebody that is of a bit more note. So it's like, and it's not a podcast like Gilbert Arenas where it's very, very clearly 50-50 satire and basketball. But if you look, I saw a big rant on Reddit, and it was talking about, like, obviously the Charleston White thing. And by the way, you can find tweets, or you can find stuff from him as early as 2019 saying stuff about the WNBA. Like, he should never have been allowed in that podcast, especially to talk about the WNBA, because I'm like, it's never going to end any other way. But like, this whole thing, suddenly it's and first of all, analyst Natalie Esquire, Jeff Teague's a whole clown. I hope no player goes in his pod or works with him. I'm just saying, if Jeff Teague was the reason for it, I agree with that statement, but that's the pot calling the kettle black. That is the pot calling the kettle black. I'm sorry, Miss Natalie Esquire. You have responded positively to racial insults based on Caitlin Clark's race. You've responded in a positive way. So I would say the same thing about you. That is the pot calling the kettle black right there. But the problem is like, you're talking about, they start talking more about, Jeff Teague says A'ja Wilson won't be able to score a point against Brian James. She wouldn't. Like, what relevance is this? It's like, oh, they're at the respective peaks. Both Clark and Wilson are at the respective peaks. No, Clark is not at her peak. And A'ja Wilson might not even be at her peak. Wilson won her third MVP. Meanwhile, Bronny, truly no respect, still trying to find his feet wet, or to get his feet wet in the NBA. That doesn't matter! Like, that is the dumbest thing ever. It's like, you've got this perfectly reasonable post about Charleston White. Perfectly reasonable. But you equate that to saying that A'ja Wilson's not as good as an NBA player. They are not equivalent. And that's the problem with all this criticism in the WNBA. You equate everything. People equate saying Angel Reese is bad at making layups to some of the awful things Angel Reese has had to endure this year. And that is one of the huge problems. You're even hearing that from the freaking media itself. You're seeing it. This is, I think, Female Athlete Network. I think this is actually like I don't really care. Is this like an actual... It says Athlete Network, so it might be something. This could well be from somebody. Swish Appeal. By Zachary Davis, who's a beat writer for Sky and the Hawkeyes. It's like, this is literally by somebody, a journalist. And you have equated what Charleston White said, which is awful, to an obvious statement that WNBA players aren't as good as NBA players. I'm sorry, Caitlin Clark would lose 21-0 to Bronny James. Bronny James is bigger, stronger, faster in a 1v1. And you might be saying, oh, but like, what about the skill? Skill doesn't matter. The professor is more skilled than Bronny James. Bronny James would still kill the professor in a game. Bronny James weighs, 60 pounds more? Has a 40-inch vertical leap on Caitlin Clark. I've seen Caitlin Clark struggle physically with Caitlin Clark could not guard Nafisa Collier. If she got guarded, put on Nafisa Collier, and Nafisa Collier would back her down, bully ball, and score every single time. I've seen her get bully balled in the WNBA by people that weigh 30, 40 pounds probably less than Bronny James, and that don't have the ability to literally just bully ball, turn, rise, dunk, which Bronny James has. And that's not saying Caitlin Clark is not a more skilled basketball player than Bronny James, because she is. She is. But like, as part of your argument for, it's time for more men in sports media to call out sexism, that is not sexism. What Charleston White did is... Talking of facts, saying facts isn't. Like, that is the problem. That is the problem, is that the WNBA media equates every single thing to sexism. Saying Angel Reese is bad at layups is not sexism, it's not misogyny. Saying an NBA player is better than a WNBA player is neither either, because it's obvious. And it's not a skill issue. It's not saying they're less skilled. If you're asking me, would I take Sabrina Ionescu in a pure three-point contest off the rack? Would I take her? Or would I take... Clay, give me Sabrina. In a one-on-one, give me 20 without Clay. It's just, like, it's just the dumbest arguments ever. And that's the problem is they equate anything. And by the way, this wasn't even like, they're like, oh, Jeff Teague brought it up. Yeah, because A'ja Wilson said, this is like the DeMarcus Cousins, Brittany Griner situation. This is only coming up because A'ja Wilson said she could beat Josh Hart in a 1v1. So yeah, it becomes relevant then. It becomes relevant to talk about topic. But, like, it starts and ends there. But it's just ridiculous. And this is the problem with the WNBA media. A level of injuries, A'ja Wilson, all WNBA players. And that's the thing where it's like, A'ja Wilson is bigger, and Caitlin Clark's the biggest star in basketball right now. A'ja Wilson is going to have a bigger impact in basketball than almost any male player over the next 10 years. Angel Reese, if she improves and learns how to make layups, is going to have a really, really big impact on the sport of basketball. I mean that because she's already a really good defender. She's already the best rebounder ever. So if she can just get her layups down, she'll be good. Like, she'll be really, really good. And I'm somebody that is literally put in thousands of my own money supporting this league. The media is a bigger problem than the product, because I don't mind. I'll watch these games. I'll have fun. But, like, people don't realize, it's like, but, like, they're as good. And it's like, man, like, college basketball, the NCAA tournament is the most viewed basketball there is, men's or women's. Neither are as good as their respective pro leagues. The WNBA is 100 times better in college. The NBA is 100 times better is 100 times better in college. And I'm sorry, like, the NBA is better than the WNBA. Like, the players are better. And you might be saying, oh, but, like, it's biology. It's not skill. And that's fine, because you're not going to see a 5'9", unathletic white dude ever make the NBA, no matter how skilled they get. Like, even Peyton Pritchard's, 6'2"? Like, there's almost limits to where you can be physically when making the NBA, and these people are still probably 30-something inch verticals, yamming it, and benching, probably 100 kilos plus, benching 200 pounds. But it's just so dumb. And it's so dumb that we're having this conversation. And it's so dumb that by having this conversation, you're being branded as sexist. It is so dumb. It is so dumb that what the awful stuff Charleston White said is being equated to an obvious statement that Bronny James would beat Caitlin Clark in a 1v1. Obviously. Like, that's so dumb to say otherwise. That is so dumb. And that's not a knock on Caitlin Clark. I think Caitlin Clark is the face of freaking basketball. She plays the game that's incredibly interesting. Or in a way that's more interesting than almost anyone. Like, the way she plays the game is crazy. But, like, if WNBA players could beat NBA players, there would be no cutoff in sport. If there was no gender, like, change in sports, there might not be a professional... There would be 10 professional women's basketball players and they'd be playing in the Spanish 4th tier. Like... And that's only because there's 100 and something teams in that league. That's just the reality of the situation. If there was no gender gap, there would be possibly no female players playing NCAA D1 or D2. And that's fine. Because in the last year, it is women's basketball that has overtaken, it is women's sports that have overtaken men's in terms, or not overtaken, but have done a great job in terms of relevancy. And I think that the reality of the situation is that the players might not be physically as big, physically as strong, but the product is still good. And I think that's the reason why people have continued to watch, is that the product is good. But now when you start, just because the product is good, just because people are starting to watch, when WNBA players start to argue that ridiculous stuff, and then it's apparently misogynist and sexist to make an obvious statement just based on biology. And like, again, one of the greatest female athletes of all time, Serena Williams. Like, one of the greatest athletes of all time, Serena Williams. Like, she'd be what, 500-600 in the world? She would be probably not a semi-professional player if she was on the men's side. And that's to even say that is unbelievable for Serena. Like, she's one of the GOATs. He's one of the GOATs of sport. But, like, it's so dumb. It's the WNBA media needs to... First of all, again, Asia said it, but it's like, you ignore what Jeff Teague says. You ignore what Jeff Teague says, that Bronny James could beat Caitlin Clark, because it's an irrelevant statement, but it's obviously true. And the reason why people keep talking about it is because you keep equating it to some of the completely ridiculous stuff that Charleston White said. I'm not even going to repeat what Charleston White said, it was that bad. But you have equated saying Aja Wilson and Caitlin Clark would lose to Bronny James to some of the most horrible things I've seen say about any players in Charleston White. And people wonder why people are complaining about the WNBA media. You cannot, every single thing is not sexist. Every single criticism or response to a talk that doesn't lead in to WNBA players are the greatest things ever is not sexist. We gotta just talk basketball sometimes. And obviously, look, Jeff Teague deserves criticism for the Charleston White thing, but apparently people are more offended about the fact that Jeff Teague just said the truth. And the fact that it's still happening, and I can't believe I'm still making videos on this. I'm sorry.